Okay, so we've been around and we've tidied up all these edges. We've gone around, sanded, we've blended in everywhere, rescribed, just popped around the LP cutter. To be honest, the panel line is well overdone and too heavy. There's two options really you can do with this. You can either go around with something like a Mr. Surfacer or a liquid filler and basically just do them all and then rescribe it again. The other way you can do it is just sand the entire thing over with quite a medium to coarse sandpaper and just work through your others, and you'll find they'll come out nice and light and a lot thinner. The ones down this front where we've been playing around with this window and things like that, that's exactly what they've done. We also went along, we've still got them on here, and I painted just a little bit of a black acrylic paint just so I can see and check joins and everything to see what they look like with some paint on. If they're looking particularly nasty now, you know you've still got a lot of work to do. So I did the same on the fuselage, re-sanded it off, popped around and rescribed all the lines in, everything else like that. So before the wings go on, I wanted to put in this belly section. Now the belly section is obviously type specific. This is the one that has the gun here at the back. If it's the bomber version, perhaps you want the bomb bay doors open, then obviously you won't have to worry about this. Basically what I did, this first piece went in thick super glue and some kicker to get it into place. Now I did give it a bit of sanding and everything, so we had some nice better joins going on, so it was in there nice and tight. And then this other one, we come along, and really what we're doing is we're popping it down, coming along like this, and we're just test fitting to see how it goes on. Now I've been playing with this for the last sort of half an hour really, coming along, keeping the sanding stick flat down and giving this a bit of a rub. Okay, and what we're trying to do is get almost a perfect fit. I'd rather spend sort of half an hour playing like this and just sanding to get this to fit in perfectly than what I would go around with filler and obviously with super glues and things like that. So we're almost there now. I'm pretty happy to how this one is now sitting in here. So what we can actually do now is really sort of put it in and line it up. Now because this is a bit hit and miss where it goes, so I've got this thick super glue. Okay, and we'll just run this down and say it's thick. What it is, it's just an old medium one that's pretty thick now. Then what we're going to do is just going to pop a little bit on both ends. Okay, we're just going to tack a little area in the middle. Okay, and not worry about the rest of it. There's a reason for this, which I'll explain in a second. But basically what we'll do now, we'll come along, make sure we got it the right way around first. Okay, pop it in. Okay, and then just push into place. Okay, avoiding sticking yourself with the glue. Okay, and we'll roughly hold it all into position whilst it's drying. Okay, tiny bit of kicker around here, just so it's literally tacked in place, just like so. I'm just going to pop this front one in a little bit better, hold that in place, kicker. Okay, and there we go, it's in place. Now what we can do now, pop around with the extra thin, because we've got some small little gaps to take care of, but what this will do is weld it all into position of everywhere we haven't, and that's why we didn't put super glue around everywhere, otherwise it's not going to go on. So we can just pop around with this one, make this belly, and what we'll do is we're going to completely fill and take care of this seam like we did the rest of them. Then we can pop back with a little bit of filler and things with the Mr. Surfacers, and just sand it all in and then just rescribe the panel lines in how we need them. But doing it like this just saves so much time than what it would if you were having to redo the entire thing. So we're just popping these in right the way around all of them now to weld them in, then we'll leave it to one side to go off. But what it will do, this will just help seal it all in, weld it all in, and it'll be job done. So that's the belly section in, and obviously we've got the back of this gun is going to fit in and will stick in, but I want it all to dry before I put it in, but that'll fit in here, and we've got the gun one on the front and like that. But it's just one of those things I wanted to take care of before we sort of move on and get the wings in. Okay, so you can probably see by the mess down here that we've got the filler on the go. Now I managed to get this line over here, this seam here, As you can see, absolutely pretty much spotless down in there. So I was really happy with it, and I thought, oh, it's okay, the other one will go on just the same. Unfortunately not. Big gap down here. So unfortunately I've bitten the bullet. We've put super glue in this top seal, kicker, and I filled it over the top. Guess what? Underneath we've got exactly the same thing. So we need this really to go off properly. It's getting a bit crispy now. It's been on about half an hour, but I'm going to give this time to go off and shrink back, because when we are using filler, it is going to shrink back. So we've got the belly in there, no problem at all. We've got the gun on the top as well. So we're really making our way forward in this, and it's coming together very, very quickly. So now what we can do, we can pop the tails on. They should be quite a nice fit and very straightforward. And then obviously we've got the aileron, tails to go on. The rudder as well. Now this is where we could perhaps kick it off to one angle, give it a slight angle to make it look like it's moved slightly in the wind if we wanted to. At the same time, he says, because he's glued one to the bench, we've got the missiles sorted out. So we've got some air-to-air missiles to go on, and we've got some normal standard rocket pods, which obviously we've glued these because they need to be cleaned up and sanded. Okay, they are very, very basic. You know, we're not in the same sort of league as perhaps using some resin aftermarket ones or perhaps from other manufacturers. So, you know, if you wanted to, you could skip these and replace them with some aftermarket ones to say, or, you know, a bit more work, a bit more cleaning up, and you're away. It is pretty much a basic kit, but on the upside, it is going together very, very nicely. So at the same time, we've done the outer tanks as well, polished up, those can go on. Now I'm probably going to put them afterwards because these come along here. I'm just going to go on the wingtip like this, but they are painted the same colour as the underside. So what I'm probably going to do is do the underside, paint these, and then these can go on after the top's done. It'll just save a lot of masking around and playing with and everything else like that. So we'll get the tails glued on and into position now. So we've already gone around and cleaned them up a bit. We just give them a bit of a polish to make sure they're all nice and smooth. Now tails on Canberras do point upwards, so you want them in the upward position. Okay, so what we can do, he says, just grabbing the old... I'm going to use a tiny bit of super glue. The reason for this is because it will hold it in place. And he says a tiny bit and has flooded the area quite nicely. So what we'll do is just get a cocktail stick to make this flow around here a little bit more. Okay, and then what we can do is just come along with this guy, push him in, hold him in position. Okay, let the bite happen. By the bite it means it'll hold its own weight. Holding its own weight like that. So we're very, very happy. Same on the other side, without using quite as much glue. Same thing again, we just drag this down to the tails around the front. Get around, same thing, can come in and we just hold this into position until we get the bite, and then what we do is we can check the angles to make sure we're at the correct angles, and we just need that to bite. Now this is a brand new bottle of super glue, and the great thing is when it's new it goes off so quick. Okay, that's done. So now what we can do, we can look at it just like this, and you might be able to see it on camera, one side is slightly higher than the other, to say the least. So whilst it's just still tacky, we can just bend that down. And we're going to do it by line of sight on this one. There we go, that's a little bit more like it. Okay, now to take care of any little joins back here, we've got a bit of the extra thin, and we're just going to run this in around, and what it'll do is just melt in the two tops and it'll act like a weld. And just do the same on the other side. And the great thing is that extra thin isn't affected by super glue, so don't think you're suddenly going to have problems. Flip him over, we just do the same with the underside. And it is a great thing with this kit, after building ones recently that have taken, you know, sort of months to build, this one's coming together in a few days. We're pretty much all together, so it is a nice change. Now check your reference photos for how you want the tails to go on. You know, obviously, do we want the tail planes to be sort of at a slight downward angle? Do we want them even up? Whichever way you want it, it's personal choice. And as I say, the rudder fitting on, depending on your colour scheme, might be how you want the rudder. Some of them are different colours and things. What I'm going to do with mine is just have it on a slight offset. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a touch of super glue. Just a tiny drop. Okay. And what we'll do is just going to kick it slightly to an angle. Now the reason for using super glue when I'm doing this is if I don't like it, I can give it a quick flick, literally, and manoeuvre it to a new position. You can just give it a bit of a clean up, and if I wanted to I could centre it up or something like that. So there we go, we're just going to give him a slight manoeuvre off. That's probably a little bit too much. We just want to make it very, very slight. So there we go, that's probably more like the angle I'm after. As I say, we want it to make it look like it's moved a little bit in the wind because it is a very large tail on these. Okay, so hopefully that's just enough to hold it just there. Super glue's not liking that too much. It isn't moving at all. Try that again. That's it, super glue's got it now. So there we have our Canberra shape. And as you can see, it's quite a large lump. It's not a small plane by any means. Don't think this thing's going to be small. When you're done, you are going to need a bit of room for it. Okay, so obviously we're really happy with all the panel lines we've done around those and everything. I'll show you about taking care of them. But at the moment, you can get on now and do the undercarriage and the gear and everything else. And one little nice touch is with the undercarriage, you've got bulged tyres and things like that. So we don't have to worry about making flat spots and all the rest of it. Pylons are done, weapons are going to be cleaned up. So we can do all those little bits and pieces. We can get this cleaned up. We can check around the glasswork, sure we're happy with it, everything else, get them fixed on, mounted up, and then we're ready for painting. Okay, so we've got fillet is all dry on these wings and everything else. So what we're going to do is the very quick way of doing these seams when they're in tricky little areas like this. So to start with, quite a coarse file, okay, very lightly, not pushing down. All this is doing is taking off all the high-sided and thick filler, okay? It's not designed to anything else. Okay, and then we can come in with a finer sanding stick, just in like this, okay, and just rub down like so. Okay, then what we can do, we can take a cotton bud, and on this we've got cellulose thinners, okay, or lacquer thinners. Alright, so we're just going to come along, and all we do is wet the area and give it a rub around. And what this will do, will get rid of all the excess thinners on there. Also, it will get rid of any bumps in this direct corner. So when you take it out, you're left with it just like this. Now the big secret is don't let the cotton bud drag. As soon as it starts to drag, just do another one here. As soon as it starts to drag and things like that, it can be a bit of a nightmare. So all we'll do is we can just go along like this, but as soon as you feel it start to drag a little bit, stop, reflood your cotton bud. Otherwise what it's doing is actually physically melting the plastic, and then when you try and wipe it off, it won't like it. So we're just coming down here, then all we'll do is we'll just wipe over here. And also what this will do is take care of any scratches you've made to the plastic, because it will slightly melt the surface and take care of them. And there we go, that is very nicely done. Don't have to worry about it, but things like around the fronts and that, it's a nice easy fix. And also you can do joins down in here, and that's what I've done over here, just to take care of those ones. That's why you got the little black, it's melted the black paint around it, but it makes it very dry. The only thing you have to watch out for is shrinkage. When we say shrinkage, it's literally as the filler, because it's gone hydrated again, if you like, it shrinks back and pulls in tight. Sometimes you get a little dip. So don't do this type of thing if you've got something like on these top ones we were doing here. Otherwise you're going to end up with trouble, because you're going to see sink lines in there. And these sink lines might turn up literally days, if not weeks, after you've finished it. So we just carry on. We'll just do this one on the top here for this gum bay. But that, I'll get that one finished off in a minute, but that really brings us to the end of the main assembly area. So what we're going to do, we're going to go along with our polishing sponges, and we're going to go right the way over the wings and everything else like that. We're going to give it 24 hours to make sure all these seam lines are all okay. In the meantime, we're going to be getting on with things like the wheels, which I've already done down here. We've taken care of the wheels, got them buttoned up and all done. The missiles, as we said before, everything else. We can get the clear part put on the top. You can do it now or after. Okay, certainly we get the nose section clear put on, get this cleared away and get it in the spray bay. Okay, so we're pretty much happy with everything here. We've checked the cockpit, we've given it a bit of a blowout to make sure we've got no dust and things left in there. So what we can do now is install the actual canopy that's going to go on the top. Now I'm going to leave the underside one open just so I can get in, you know, if I have to. Okay. Make sure you've got no dust and horribles on the inside, so make sure it gives it a wipe out first. Okay, and then what we're going to do is just going to give this a little tab. And he says, just looking for a scene. Now the thing for giving this just a quick tab on the top, which is going to come along, pop it on, is so I've got something to hold on to, because this is very shallow, so there's no real way of pinching the canopy on. So we're just giving it a little tab on top, so that's so literally I can plonk it down. Okay, using gator glue, okay, or any clear PVA, you just want to make sure it dries really clear. The only reason I like this stuff, it's got a bit of bite to it. So it hasn't got a bite. When you first put this stuff on, you know, I get a cocktail stick like this, then all we do is literally just run around the inside. When you first put this on, it's very, very slippy and it slides all over the place and it's not too brilliant, and you think, you know, what's this guy on about? It's not that good. But what you do, you give it just a couple of minutes to go off on here, and what happens is it goes slightly clear, and as soon as that happens, sorry, just concentrating here, as soon as that happens, it gets really grippy. It's just initially when you first use it, I know people have said to me, you know, it's not that good, it's just like any other PVA. Just let it sit just for a second like this, okay, and as soon as it starts to go just a little bit clear, okay, pop it down, you'll find it'll grip a lot better than if you had. That's when I'm using it for PVA parts and things like that. And I say the great thing is this dries crystal clear. Even if you've got it actually on the actual clear part, you probably won't see it. So okay, we got this one on. We're happy the cockpit is all together and everything else. So literally we're just going to come down and place this roughly in position. Okay, and when we say roughly in position, it is just a temporary thing to start with. All we're going to do is just manoeuvre this around to try and get the canopy in so it fits. Now this is one of those canopies which is going to be a problem, okay, because it seems to be when you're okay on one side, it's not on the other, and because of the way it is, okay, so we've got him in. And again, this side seems to be very far over. Okay, so that's on now and it's sealed all the way around, and that's what we were trying to see, is to make sure that it's actually sealed all the way in. What we're going to do now is not touch it. Let this go off as is and get a bit bitey, okay? As soon as it's got a bit bitey, what we can do is we can go around and actually, there's two things we can do. We can either go around with a little bit, a very, very fine Mr. Surfacer or something like that, and just run it round. Okay, now you don't have to worry about fogging up because it's on the outside, and it'll make a seal, the clear will make a seal, as long as it's all the way through. All we're doing is making sure we've got no massive big stick outs. When I say stick outs, I'll translate, it actually means, in here, actually means bits where it's pulled out. And I've got a little bit on both sides back here. So I'm going to do wet a cotton bud. Literally, I just give it a bit of, suck it a bit, okay, and we just wipe it away. And being PVA, it should just wipe away very nicely. Okay, so we're going to let him go off, and then what we can do is we can come back and you can either add a little bit more gator glue to it and just tap it around, and then we'll give it a good wipe round afterwards, which will give you a nice flush seal then. Or as I say, you can use something like a bit of Mr. Surfacer, and then obviously with a bit of thinners on your bud, you can go around and tape that in. So what we're going to do, we're going to mask up the side window as well, and this one on the top. Mask those over. Once we're done with that, we can get the front on. We can button up this door. We're just going to put the door, which is this one round here, close it up for the minute, because there again it gives us access, if you can see inside, you can see in up there to the canopy, and if we've got any bits of dust and things in there, we can still get to it. That's why I never close up a model until it's unmasked so I can see back into it. Those of you who remember the Hawkeye build, opened it up and we had dust all over on the inside from all that work that was done to it, so I had to physically cut a window out of the kit, put a cotton bud in, get it all out, and then seal it up afterwards, which wasn't the best way of having to do it. Okay, so we'll let those dry off. In the meantime as well, what I'm going to do is the bench is absolutely covered in dust and basically filler and things like that. So what we're going to do is clean this away, give it a good wipe down so we're completely dust free, run the extractor for a bit so we got all the dust out of the room, and then we can get on with the painting. Okay, so first up, we've completely gone round and rescribed absolutely everywhere, all nicely tidied up and everything else like that. No real biggies, I must admit, because the panel lines are so big on this, they're really easy to follow. So you can just drag your P-Tuff cutter around. Got the small little trumpeter one, which is great for getting into corners and things like that. All taken care of. So what we're going to do now in the usual way is we're going to take a little bit of flat black just for the moment, okay, and we're just going to pre-paint the canopy area and the framing work. Now, as I say, if you haven't seen this before, the reason for doing this is so when you look from the inside it looks black, okay, and the other way as well, it gives it great depth by pre-painting in black. Whatever colour you put, no matter if it's white, you don't get that opaque or see-through look to the good paintwork around glass areas. So we've got just around the nose, so coming around the canopy. The other thing as well, obviously this is your last chance to see if you need any gaps. If you've got big gaps around your canopy, right now you're in the position you could just pop along and repaint them. So just make sure you come in from all your angles and it will just cover in. It will just make sure and show up. So we're just coming around all of these, just like so. Now this front one, to be honest, is looking a little bit gappy. So what we might just do, have a close look when it dries to see how big that gap is. Can we get away with it? It's looking like a panel line, which, you know, I'm hoping we can. Or do we need to take care of it a little bit more? But I'm happy with the way the main canopy's gone on, and that was always going to be the troublesome one. What also I'm going to do that is slightly different from normal is the actual intakes and things like this. Because of the way they are, I'm actually going to paint them by hand. They're pretty basic, so we're going to give them a basic paint job. The other thing as well we're going to do with this one, we're going to do something slightly different. With this one, we're actually going to post shade. Normally you'll see me in a moment, we come along, we put down our primer right the way over, and then we start going around putting our black lines in to pre-shade. This one we're going to do it slightly different, so something new, we're going to post shade it. So we're going to paint the entire thing, and then we're going to go around and put the shadow in afterwards. We're still going to fade the paint and mop the paint and all the rest of it, but it's just a little bit different. So we just let this black work dry off. I'm going to give it a coat of primer right the way over, then we can get on with the painting. Okay, so here we go then with the old paint job. Obviously various paints around. The colours we're going to need for this particular one, because this is the fighter version, there's slightly different ones, so check your colours. But for this one, for the underside, we're going to be using the BS 381, which is the light aircraft grey, which is like the creamy white colour. For the grey, we're going to be using the BS 318 or 638. I can't even talk today. 386, something like that. Okay, and then for the green one, we're going to be using the BS 381. Okay, now this is your standard greens, if you like, and grey that you get on lots of RAF aircraft. Now the thing is, there is other ones available, obviously, but they're the ones I'm going to be using for this one. Now, if you're using Guns paints, remember they are absolutely hard as nails. Lovely paints to work with, but they're more like enamels. They do take time to dry, a lot longer. You get this skin effect and you think, oh, that's nice and dry, and you grab it, and before you know it, you've left a big fingerprint in it. So just be careful with that. We've gone around, you might see it's a bit patchy underneath. That's purely because what I've done is I've found little rough areas, so I've used the polishing sponge, just given them a rub over, just to polish them up, and you'll notice you can probably quite rough versus very, very smooth, and it's really just to check. So okay, thinners in first, 50-50 mix, nothing special with this. We don't have to worry about pre-shading and all those things we normally have to worry about taking care, because we're going to do post-shading on this particular one. So with this light colour that we're using now, obviously what we can do is very liberally spray it absolutely everywhere. Check our flows coming through, happy how the flow is, okay, and then making sure we're all clear. We're just going to put a coat on. We'll lightly build it up. It's going to be a bit tricky to see in some areas because of, obviously it's very close to the colour of the paint, which is one reason for using the primer so we can see a lot easier than before. Remember, every now and again, clean your tip. Okay, what we're going to do, I'm going to flick the extractor on and you can watch, but as I say, nothing particularly important here. So we're just going to put this down, and then what I'm going to do is, once we've got this on, I'm going to go round and paint all the gear, doors, the weapons, everything that's going to need to be this colour, because obviously there's lots of things which are going to be this underside colour. So we come in from one direction, we're just coming in from the other. Just be careful you don't flood it. As I said before, this one is a bit rough, but as you can probably see, those seam lines underneath are gone. Tiny bit of black paint has come through there. Now what that is, that's actually off of the nozzle inside this. As you might be able to see, he says putting his finger in it. Just down here we've got this speckling of little bits of black. Okay, so what that is actually black paint that's obviously being released from inside the nozzle that's come through. So what we'll do, we're not going to play with it too much, we'll just let that dry off and we'll come back and go right over the top of it once it's dry. Everywhere we want to go. We're going to do wheel wells because we'll pick them out afterwards. So for the moment it's just a case of getting a coat of paint down on this. Absolutely everywhere is smooth coat. So there we go. I'm going to carry on spraying this, and at the same time as I say, I'm going to do all the wheel well, doors, the pylons, the tip tanks, everything else like that. Okay, so all nice and dry, nice and smooth, everything else. I'm really happy how it's turned out. Okay, so what we're going to do now is sort of blend in. We want to give it, you know, stop looking like a brick. So what we're going to do here is we've got some of the original colour, but not much of it. Okay, we're going to double the mixture. So what we've basically done here, if it's a 50-50 mix with the paint, and then what we've done is we've just thinned that again. So basically now you're very thin, and then we're going to take one brush load, if we bring this over here, shouldn't do it really over the wing, into the paint, and what this will do is make a whitish but quite a thin mix. Now make sure it's had a good old mix in here, and don't do it over the wing like I'm doing. Okay, so what we've done really, we've just lightened this colour. Okay, so it's going to be quite light, so we need to blow through first to get the nude colour to come out. All we're going to do is pick out the centres. Now because we haven't pre-shaded this, we've got no pre-shading showing through, okay, so we're a little bit more. So what we're going to do is what I call circular blotching. Okay, so we're coming along and we're just doing circles in the middle of panels. And what this will do, when we come along with the post shading, hopefully it will sort of blend in, but what it'll do, it'll stop it looking too uniform. So you don't come off the trigger, you're constantly on it, but you're looking to blend it round, okay? So by doing this, it'll hopefully mottle it all up and stop it looking too tonal. Okay, so if you do happen to go over a bit, what will happen is when we come along with the post shade and put it through, it won't really make a difference because it hopefully will blend in, and then obviously the wash will we'll put it over a satin finish so it grinds it up. So between all three, it'll work quite well. So don't panic too much if you look a little bit too blotchy and, you know, sort of not even, it looks all a little bit funny and things like that, because it really won't matter. Just what you want to avoid though is actually doing the panel lines themselves, because we're just going to go over those anyway. So I don't know how well this will appear on film, but I'm hoping what you can see here, if I just put the airbrush down, I'm going to handle this quite gently, but I'm hoping you can see that this side down here we've got quite blotchy and all the rest of it. This one over here is still quite plain, so it will look like almost you've got post shading on, but when the post shading goes on, it will bring it through a lot more stark. So if I turn that round, you can sort of hopefully get a feel. I know we got that yellow, awful yellow light there, but that will give you that. So it will just break it out. And by the time we've got large numbers to go under here, perhaps we can pick out some panels and make them look a lot nicer and things like that. You'll get the idea of, you know, it being broken down, because it is a large area. And as I say, it's something we're going to do with the actual the main colours themselves when they go on. Alright, so we're just going to do this bit of the wing as well. But by doing circles, you'll double up in some areas and not in others. But hopefully what will happen is, it'll just give it that real blotchy effect. Because we don't want to just pick out centres, we're literally trying to make it look dirty, blotchy, used. Just like that. Okay, so if you're thinking, you know, want to do it a little bit more, by all means just go around, give it another coat to strengthen it through. Just like so. But don't forget, we're trying to use it as a tone, if you like. So what we're going to do now, we're going to thin it again. We've only got a tiny bit left in the colour cup, so we're going to double that again. Okay, and we're just going to take a tiny bit more white paint into the mix. Okay, because obviously we don't want to make this thing white, but we are trying to do it. This is very thin now, so blowing that through. Same thing again, but what we're going to do, we're going to just go in some of the panels, not absolutely every single one. So we've lightened it again. So hopefully you can get an idea now of this type of effect we're getting with. And as I say, really, it's just designed, in all honesty, to break this up. When you've got post shading, you'll get the effect a lot quicker than what you will like this. But as I say, it's one of those ones which doesn't seem to do much whilst you're doing it. But trust me, when you come to the end, you'll really notice it. I won't worry too much about that belly gun area, because obviously we've got to paint that all black anyway. But once you've finished, what I tend to do is just go around and just blow all over everywhere. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to let that dry, but there you go, that gives that idea of the blotching, and already we're starting to look slightly faded. As that dries down, it'll become a lot more universal than it is at the moment. What I'm going to do now is put this over to one side, let it totally dry, because obviously we need to flip this over, and as I said before, this stuff takes a lot longer to dry.